And good morning. This is the Morning Sports Talk Blitz. This is the on the road edition. We're going to be in Montreal for the next 2 weeks. So let's get right into it. This episode's not going to be a very long one, about probably about 25-minute episode. So for NFL training camp, Washington Commanders wide receiver Terry McLaurin returned from his holdout and it has reported to the Washington training camp on July 27th. Though still without a new contract, he's been on the POP list with ankle injury. The Giants camp on July 28th. Rookie quarterback Jackson Dart impressed in the day 4 of camps, and linebacker Abdul Carter stood out at practice with, with an amazing sack and stood really strong on defense. Other updates. The Atlanta Falcons owner Arthur Blank has hinted at that every single NFL team should at least play one international game during the NFL season. There's a good possibility that could be in reality when they go and they talk about their CBA next season. On other news, Deion Sanders made a post about his medical situation, and everyone thought he was going to resign from the Colorado. However, he has posted on his social media account that he is feeling better and he is looking really good, meaning that he's most likely coming back. People were thinking he was resigning. We don't know. We won't know until I think sometime today, maybe later today. They do a press conference, and his medical team would discuss if he's going to step down as the head coach of Colorado, or he will be returning, and they would have his role a little bit more reserved due to his medical situation. Some people don't know, but he has had some of his toes amputated, um, meaning that he has had some pre-existing medical issues that has coincided with just things that he's been trying to work on since then. But let's keep it understanding that whatever Deion Sanders' medical situation is, I hope he does come back at full swing. I personally like Deion Sanders as a uh, NCAA football coach. He did wonders when he was in Jackson State, and he's doing wonders right now currently at Colorado. I don't see why people, as much as people hated him, a lot of people don't like his larger than life persona, and obviously that's carried over with his kids. However, even with all that being said, Dion has brought a lot of eyes back on Colorado, which Colorado hasn't had in a very long time. And I'll be damned if that man leaves anytime sooner. If anything, I think the University of Colorado is in great need of the fact that Deion Sanders has put a lot of eyes on its program, where in decades prior it hasn't been that so lucky. Um, so just so you guys have update what we're going to be doing moving forward. Um, Starting next week, we'll be doing video podcasts. Something that I normally don't do a lot of on this show because I personally like the old school radio feel, like you're listening to a radio broadcast. That's what I like. But I'm in Montreal, so sorry. Next Monday, we'll be doing video on iconic locations throughout the city of Montreal. We're going to be at the Bell Center. We're looking at going to the Morrison Stadium where the CFL's Montreal Alouettes play. We're looking at going to the site of the old Olympia Stadium where the Montreal Expos at one point played. We're looking at hopefully getting some people around Montreal that have always been diehard fans talk about the sport environment and and just make it more lively type of podcast for next week. This week it's going to be a little mellow out, not too crazy. Um, so let's talk a little bit more about that Deion Sanders situation. Let's go. Oh, also the NFL has announced they're doing the rivalry uniforms. Patriot, basically all the AFC East announced it. NFC West is doing it. We also know that the Buffalo Bills have confirmed that they are bringing back the '90s look, the red helmet, the you know the four-time Super Bowl appearance, but failed to win it all. Uniforms are coming back, and rumor has it the Patriots may go with a modified version of their 1990s outfit during the Drew Bledsoe days. So, if that's what they're going to pull out, I'm all for it. Don't know what the Jets are going to do. Or the Dolphins. I mean, I'm expecting throwback Dolphin uniforms, to be fair, but I don't know what the Jets are going to do. Unless the Jets are like pull something out of their ass, I don't see them doing anything spectacularly different in their uniform department. Arizona Cardinals already hinted at something. So did the 49ers. Rams. Rumor has it the Rams may bust out something called the Midnight Editions. So San Diego Chargers already announced that they're bringing back the 95 Super Bowl uniforms that they wore when they lost against the 49ers. The navy blue helmet, just the midnight blue dawning colors, I'm excited to see those again. Those were probably one of my favorite Charger uniforms out of the bunch. It's funny when they mentioned about Jackson Dart doing really good day 4. Some analysts compared him to Taysom Hill for the New Orleans Saints, and I'm like, oof, I don't know if you want to be compared to Taysom Hill when you're trying to become a starter. Now, are they hinting at this is diversity? I'm hoping so, but that's still not the greatest person you want to be compared to at this moment where you're trying to have a NFL career as a potential starter being compared to a guy who's not a starter and who is essentially a bona fide backup for the rest of his career is not the best way to be, labeled. That's my personal opinion. I could be wrong. Um, but, who knows, right? Who knows? But on another front, we're also looking at the fact that the NFL is really pushing the international aspect of the league. And so that's not necessarily you know that's no one's fault to compare a guy to a backup, but you have to look at it from like a player's perspective. Do you want to be compared to a player that hasn't really been a full-time starter, or do you want to be compared to a player that's already a starter? These are the things that I don't think they sit and think through. But it is what it is. Not going to get mad over it. Um, Another thing that I figured that makes sense is that you have players who are, trying to make the cut. And like right now, the Giants have that running back out Arizona State, Cambu. Cambu. Is it Cambu? Can't pronounce the last name for the life of me. it's like back to those. I don't know if people remember this guy, but Peyton Hillis or Michael Ocelot, the pure generational talent of, those guys that were like essentially natural born Mack trucks, you know. You don't have that much anymore in the NFL. You don't have that bruising running back of sorts that, once upon a time, hot defensive lineman's dreams or defensive coordinator's dreams. But you don't have a lot of those anymore. And I think because of that, everything looks, completely different when you look at it from like a fan's perspective, or even a opposing team. If you could name me any players that are running backs that are polarizing characters that strike fear into a defensive coordinator's schemes, please give me one, because like I said, right now, the way things are in the National Football League, you just have some that are just oh no. Oh no. You're kidding me. Sometimes you just got to be. Sometimes you just when you look at these players and these teams, that's not good. But let's look deeper into the NFL teams, right? Where all these teams will be, later this season. The Steelers with the last ditch attempt to with Aaron Rodgers to hope that the question is, are the Steelers in denial with Mike Tomlin? Because don't get me wrong, they haven't had a losing season. I mean, that's not an easy task for anyone, having that under your belt is really good. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, let's go back to when the Chargers at one point were we're going back to the Marty Sizen when Marty was the head coach back of the Chargers, and they went 13-3, and he got fired because they didn't make the playoffs after season after season after season of inching so close. But even with Damon Thomas and Drew Brees at one point, and still couldn't get it. So they fired the guy that once again was a winning coach, but because they could never get over the hump and make it to the playoffs and the Super Bowl, they had to cut ties with this guy. So with that being said, what do you have to do as like an organization to fix this situation? What do you have to do? Like, and I think that's something that a lot of teams have an issue with, right? They don't know what to fix. And because they don't know what to fix, they're stuck with a lot of the uh, with a lot of the what ifs right now, and that makes things 20 times more difficult. And now I'll be the first one to tell you, you know, how much longer can an organization just take the winning every season, but not going past, Super Bowl, like when is it enough? And I think that's where the biggest pet peeves are. I know fans don't want, you know, I know some fans are just so upset over Mike Tomlin for just the mediocrity of just being a coach that never loses. But how long can you really coach like that and not win games? I mean, I think Aaron Rodgers was his last ditch attempt. Maybe he knows something that the fans don't know. Maybe he's on his last limbs. The organization they're about to say, thank you for all your contributions, but we're we're basically all set. Could that be it? Could this be Mike Tomlin's last ride, so to speak, and he's banking on Aaron Rodgers to come in and bail them out? Or is this a slow rebuilding process? He brings in Aaron Rodgers. He tutors the Will Harrell to be, the rightful heir of the Steelers' fortune, and bring Mason Rudolph in as like security until Will's ready to go. I mean, that sounds more realistic for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now than, having Aaron Rodgers as the last ditch attempt to win a Super Bowl. TJ Watt, not that I'm against, them resigning him, but I would have just traded him. I would have traded him to try to get some draft capital for next season, because at this rate you're in a in closet rebuilt mode. If anyone else thinks otherwise, then they're more delusional than these Steeler fans that think that Mike Tomlin's and they go and win it all this year. Because I hate to tell you, they're not winning it. They'll be lucky enough if they even get as far as they did this last season. And the fact that the Ravens could be the first team since the inception of the AFC North to be 3-time NFC North champions. That's saying a lot. That means no other team has been able to become a 3-time divisional champions in the NFC North. And the Ravens being the first, that's going to rub some hardcore Steeler fans the wrong way. They're going to be really mad if that happens. How dare we let the Ravens, do this? But hey, maybe you guys didn't. The Steelers didn't suck so bad. They would have been the first team to do it. But hey, each their own. Sucks to be them, I guess. I think I have told people numerous times I'm a diehard Baltimore Ravens fan. But where is the limit? Where, like right now, I want to be like that guy that says, "Oh my God, we're gonna Ravens on the Super Bowl." Oh yeah, listen, we haven't reached Super Bowl since the last time with Joe Flacco. Now, does that mean I don't think we're gonna win or we have a chance? No, I don't believe that. I think we can easily, go back to the Super Bowl. But I'll be honest with you, the window's getting really close with Lamar Jackson. And I mean, now let's say the Ravens do it to make it to the Super Bowl. It would be a pretty amazing feat, especially where we don't know where the Ravens have been in terms of the competition realm. The last season should have been their year. That's what a lot of people keep saying. Listen, there's a lot of things that should have been when it should have been their year and it wasn't. But the question people have to ask now is the Ravens that we have now, the roster they have built right now, are they ready to win the Super Bowl? Are the New England Patriots with Mike Vrabel better than they were with Jamar Mayo? I think the Patriots have done leaps and bounds more improvements since they got Mike Vrabel. Now, that situation was all wacky. The only reason why Jerome Mayo even became the head coach because it was contractually written into his contract that he would have been the head coach. I feel he never got a fair shake at head coach. I also thought that, as the owner of the New England Patriots, you would think Robert Kraft would have been smart, pulled Mayo aside and say, listen, we really want to bring in Mike Vrabel, want to keep you on the coaching staff. Well, what we want to do is have you essentially learn from Mike Vrabel, and have best of both worlds. That's what they should have done. I think John Mayo's experience will bitter him to the point where he won't come back as a player at all. I mean, I think that was his only chance as a head coach. If he did go back to coaching, I would be shocked. I don't think this whole situation has made it any better for Gerard Mayo in terms of his head coaching endeavors, which is kind of sad because, like I said, I think the man got the worst situation possible for any rookie head coach. Went to an organization that's, has some type of procedure behind them, and you're expected to essentially continue those winning ways. And we all know that the Patriots were in a rebuild situation, Now, this is the question. How is it that the Pittsburgh Steelers have never had a losing season, but has not won a Super Bowl since the last time they went? Like, that makes no sense to me. How could you be that dominant season after season, winning record and all, and not produce another Super Bowl appearance in that time frame? Like how is that even possible? Like that, I don't understand. The Mistress of Mayhem, thank you very much for coming on to the Morning Blitz Sports Stocks on the road edition. We're in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Once again, this is a special edition. We are on the road. We're in a whole nother country, in a whole nother city. We're here until next week. I did a lot of traveling, so I'm not in the mood to be on the camera. But I'll be on the camera next week. All next week, we'll be going to different spots throughout Montreal, do editions of the show, and we're going to go and try to see if we can get someone that lives in Montreal, maybe a sports legend or one or two, come on the show. We'll see what we can dig up properly. But once again, like I said, about the whole Pittsburgh Steelers, how can you, as an organization, be so good with 0 losing seasons and not make it to another Super Bowl appearance? Baffling to me. I just don't understand it. And there's so many other sport franchises that haven't made it either. Like, look at the Montreal Canadiens. They haven't won a Stanley Cup since '93, made appearance during the COVID era, and still couldn't capture it. It's one of those things where you kind of get lost in the situation. Like, you don't know why any storied sport organization has these issues, right? And do you think there's no way they should run into any of these issues? But they do. Now, Washington Commanders are in a situation where they have one wide receiver that was a holdout but still shows up to training camp in good faith that a contract will be reached between them and said player. But look at Cincinnati. They're so cheap that a player decided to go back to college to enter the draft. What is wrong with the athletes? What is wrong with the sport of football in general? That this stuff happens. And once again, this goes back to what I said about my displeasure of the end since the inception of the NIL has been nothing more than not a good thing for any sports, football, especially for the NFL. It's definitely hurt the NFL immensely because the way now players can just like go to college for 5 seasons and make bank that way and join the NFL whenever they just feel ready to go. There's no rush now to go to the NFL unless it's always been your dream to go to the NFL. There is no rush for it anymore. And I think that's where the bigger problem lies, right? There's no more essential need to go to the NFL if you're making more money in your NIL than you would if you sign a bonus contract in the NFL draft class. And I think that's a problem. And I sit there and I really think about the landscape of professional sports and how it's slowly changing. They're pushing flag football more. They're pushing all sorts of things. Hell, there's a league called the Beach Football League, which essentially, I don't know if you guys ever heard of the A7FL. It's like that, but on beach. And there's like every summer there's tournaments in different beaches. There's one right up where I live, Hampton Beach in Hampton, New Hampshire hosts one of the biggest ones. It's crazy. They do California too, and I think New Jersey. So They're trying to really expand the sport as much as they can by finding different revenues, different areas. Also, Major League Baseball. I don't know, man. I hope the Red Sox kind of win out and then get deep into the postseason. That's what I'm hoping for. Also, just a reminder, guys, I am still going to the Premier Lacrosse League Championship in Harrison, New Jersey. I'm still planning to get the tickets. I'm still planning to go and do another on the road edition episode specifically for that championship game. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. I do know I'm doing one for the New England Patriots versus Baltimore Ravens, December 21st in Baltimore. We may squeeze in another NFL game sometime this season. I don't know when. I'll keep you guys definitely posted on that one. But I do want to say that I have to cut this episode. Sorry. But we'll be back on the Morning Blitz tomorrow morning at 9:30 like we always are. Monday through Friday, 9:30. We'll be back. I'll be back. AJ will be back here on the Hardcore Sports Network. You guys have a good morning. Talk to you guys soon.